As our much vaunted G20, hosted by Johannesburg, falls apart, I want to tell you why this is so good for South Africa. And before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsor, Pace Car Rental, that helped keep us on the air. Go to their website, rent a car. They've got all kinds of cars available, payment options. It's just great. And then use our code SONA and you can get a discount. So support Pace Car Rental. You won't be sorry. So here we are. The G20 is falling down around our ears, right? Johannesburg is a mess. We were meant to have the presidents of the other 19 biggest economies in the country, and 5 of them at last count have already withdrawn. And I think that this is fantastic news. And I want to tell you why. It's not because I want South Africa to fail, it's because I want South Africa to succeed. So I'm going to give you a bit of a history lesson here as to why I find this to be so good for the country. Well, I would say that this G20 fiasco officially ends the Rainbow Nation honeymoon that South Africa has enjoyed for the past 3 decades. The warm afterglow of the new South Africa, the land of Nelson Mandela, the country that could do no wrong. I'm saying that this did us no good whatsoever. So, yeah, here we are in South Africa. Let's cast our minds back to the 1990s. Country, President Nelson Mandela, everybody loves us, loves our flag, everything's flying high. We had the negotiated settlement instead of a civil war. We negotiated this wonderful constitution. This economy can now run and everything was great. And the world backed us. They backed us beyond what was due to us. The normal rules didn't apply to South Africa. No. What happened? It would be so easy to blame the demise of this G20 or the marginalization of this G20 summit, which is going to be spun as a success, but it's a dismal failure. It's very easy to lay the blame at the door of Donald Trump and his fractious relationship with South Africa, and the fact that Afriforum is in his ear telling him that South Africa is a bad country and things like that. We could say that, yeah, it's just an unstable president doing strange stuff. Well, that would be fine if it was just Donald Trump. But when Xi Jinping from China decides not to come, suddenly it's a different story, right? He's not coming because he's trying to be some kind of follower of Donald Trump. He's not doing it because Afriforum has sent, groups of people to Beijing to go and tell him not to come to South Africa. No, Xi Jinping is his own man. What's at play here? Let's have a quick look at how we got to where we got to, right? Let's first talk about the organization currently known as the G20. That used to be known in its heyday as the G7. It was the 7 biggest capitalist economies in the world. And they felt that it was quite useful to have all these really important countries sitting in a room deciding what to do in the best interests of countries that were the most successful. You had Japan, Canada, the USA, United Kingdom, Germany, France. Yeah, that was, probably missed out one, but that was the G7. All these countries got together. They were the most economically important countries in the world, and they made decisions that were important to them. Now, you could call it elitist, you can call it whatever you like, but sometimes successful people want to speak to successful people, and that's what you had. You had successful people in the room. And it worked. They found that the United Nations was too noisy, too messy. You get the situation where a big country's got the same speaking rights as Burkina Faso. It's a joke, right? It's a great big talk shop that really didn't do much at all. But when it came to matters of business, the G7 could get stuff done. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia was added to make it the G8. This was in the hope of bringing Russia in as a capitalist country. And for a while, it really, really worked. until in the late 1990s, somebody got this great idea to enlarge this economic group, but not just by a little, but by a lot. They were going to turn it into the G20. So what did they do? They got the 19 of the biggest economies in the world, and of course it starts becoming subjective. What is a big economy? Is it GDP? Is it growth? Is it production? What is it? And it started to get a little bit, wonky. So they get the top 19 and decide to add South Africa as the 20th, even though we weren't by any measure one of the top 20 economies in the world. Why? We were the rainbow nation. We were the nation of Nelson Mandela. South Africa had every chance, and we still do, to be one of the biggest economies in the world. We chose not to, and we'll get to that in a second. South Africa also, as the name suggests, is in Africa, and it would be quite politically correct to have a country from Africa inside this body that's going to be talking about economics. It sort of seemed a little bit wrong to exclude Africa from this. So South Africa became a proxy for the rest of Africa. This was the late 90s, peak love affair time with South Africa. So, at the same time, to reward South Africa as part of a package built on guilt, built on sympathy, and built on hope that South Africa would become the country that it could become, we got all sorts of nice things. We got awarded a Rugby World Cup, a Cricket World Cup, and finally the big kahuna, the Football World Cup, 2010. Remember the feeling, it's coming, it is coming. It's Africa's turn. We were ready. South Africa was there. And for many years, it looked like we were going to live up to that promise. The country was growing. Unemployment was going down. We were adding 500,000 jobs a year. But there was this burning problem that started in the late 90s, started largely with the arms deal. And that is that it seemed like South Africa was a country sliding into crime and corruption and maladministration, and starting to look like an African country with better roads. Still, the world held hope that we would do the right thing. But we kept on choosing to do the wrong thing. President Jacob Zuma, what was the expectation? The rest of the world were embarrassed by us, embarrassed by South Africa. Imagine, for years you've said South Africa can do it, we'll support South Africa, do this in South Africa, South Africa. Instead, it turns into yet another African country. Most of those countries that had supported us throughout were just too polite to tell us that we were going wrong and they could no longer support South Africa. Well, a lot changed. A lot changed in South Africa, and a lot changed internationally. The world became a lot less pleasant of a place. Suddenly wars started to erupt. Suddenly South Africa couldn't keep this bad news under the blanket anymore. We couldn't blame apartheid forever. It was only working within the ANC's own constituency. So what does South Africa do? They find another wallet that they can steal from, and that was BRICS. If the rest of the world wants to be so horrible to us, we'll join BRICS, and we will poke at the bully, the big countries. We'll play both sides. So in other words, you can keep on giving us aid, you can keep on giving us money, you can keep on trading with us. But we are going to start talking about not using the dollar as the reserve currency. We are going to keep on talking about our friendship with Iran. We're going to do all of these things. And what was the expectation? The expectation was that we heard it so many times. There's a new world order. It's not the US anymore. China's going to take over the world. We've got new friends, basically. Then along comes Donald Trump, and he does what Donald Trump does. He absolutely disrupted the world, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. In the case of South Africa, with a lot of ex-South Africans talking into his ear, He absolutely didn't buy the story, and he said, no, this country is out of line. I'm going to do whatever I did. He calls Cyril Ramaphosa to the White House. We remember the spectacle, talking about crime, talking about this, that, and the other. South Africa just suddenly starts looking like an ordinary country. That big, bright spotlight starts shining on the country. But there's still the hope of BRICS. Well, suddenly the hope of BRICS is looking quite faint, because those very BRICS countries are starting to turn their back on South Africa as well. Xi Jinping is also not coming to the G20. If he were such a lover of his BRICS fellow countrymen, fellow travelers in BRICS, he would come. He would support his mate Cyril Ramaphosa, but he sees no economic value in coming to South Africa. Right. Why do I think this is a good thing? I think this is a good thing because, there's a wonderful thing called tough love. And South Africa is in desperate need of tough love. We cannot be a country of failure that keeps on being rewarded for our failure, because we had suffered apartheid, because we were the country of Nelson Mandela. That doesn't excuse everything that we do. Because we've got the Constitution, because. It doesn't mean that we can behave badly. And we have behaved really badly for 15 years. Just listen to the Madlanga Commission. Don't believe me. Just go and read what they came out with in the Zondo Commission. This is a country that allows its children to drown in pit latrines. Pit latrines. In South Africa, a country in the G20, children are dying in the feces of other children. Really. And people want us to be in the G20. Are you starting to see the problem here? So, now the veil has been lifted. We can no longer hide behind this rainbow nation story. South Africa now assumes its place along with the rest of the world, somewhere in the middle of the pack and falling. And it's become up to us to climb that ladder. Nobody is just putting us at the top of the ladder. We are a country that has squandered our inheritance, squandered their inheritance. What every other country in Africa inherited was nothing compared to what the South African government inherited in this country, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of potential, in terms of fertile land, in terms of minerals, you name it. We've got whatever we need. But squander it we will do. And we have this expectation that the rest of the world must reward us as if it's our divine right. Well, the G20 miserable failure is proving that it doesn't work that way. We are now just another mid-level country. When it comes to competitiveness, there's an index for the ease of doing trade, all countries in the world. South Africa ranks 84th. 84th. Does that sound like a G20 country to you? Even Russia is at 31. This is what you talk about when you talk about a country that is going in the wrong direction. And I think it's great, as a patriotic South African, that we suddenly have consequences to our bad actions. Because South Africa is a country where we don't have consequences, where we know that our president's a thief, but nobody puts him in jail, where commission after commission mentions this person that's driving an Aston Martin on a public servant salary, and that one that's got 5 Lamborghinis while the hospital doesn't have medicine, and nothing happens. You can't expect to get the nice stuff while you're allowing that to happen. You can't be in the G20. So we are in the G20, but the G20 is not in us. Everybody's saying, sorry, we really don't see the point to you. We don't see the point of coming to your dilapidated country. Just this week, the Wall Street Journal had an article. Johannesburg, this is what happens when a city gives up. And it's got the usual pictures of street lights not working, traffic lights, or potholes, they call them Joburg jacuzzis. The journalist was fascinated by the fact that somebody puts up a sign at an intersection to say there's crime at this position. In any other country, you'd send policemen there. But no, this is South Africa. I drove to a meeting today. There was a traffic light that was out and a traffic policeman in the city of Tshwane standing 20 meters away trying to stop cars instead of directing traffic at the traffic light that was out. That's the kind of country we've become. Now, in what universe do we think that that country that I've just outlined belongs in the G20 or belongs in BRICS? There is no ways a country belongs there that does that. There is no ways that a country that accepts a pass mark of 30% for any subject at school belongs in the G20. Right? It's time that we get serious with ourselves. Right? We saw the spectacle this week of AfriForum putting up signs on the highway saying South Africa is the most race-regulated country in the world. Instead of arguing on the merits, what does the Gauteng government do? They go and pull down those signs because they're embarrassing. No, sir. What should be embarrassing is the fact that they can say that this is the most race-regulated country in the world. Not the most successful country, not alive with possibilities. No, we're fighting over semantics. We're blaming history. We are now on our own. We are now just another country. And for that, I'm eternally grateful as a South African. I now see a future in the country because this country will only survive if we are good, not because we didn't have a war, not because we had problems 35 years ago, but because we're good now. That's what must be the marker. People must want to come here, not be forced to come here. We have become the country that relied on events. Put on a World Cup and then people will come here for the World Cup. Put on this summit and people come here. Enough now. Let's rather people want to come here rather than people are forced to come here because of some event. Right? That's when we've won the game. And it's so easy to see how we could turn South Africa into the jewel that it should be. The jewel that it should be. We could stop fighting with each other for 5 minutes. We could stop saying some people are more South African than others. We could start applying the law. This is not rocket science. And as soon as we do that, we will be the success we can be. Now, I'm a little bit heartened. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to hear good news, but I'm heartened. I'm heartened by the fact that this has happened. I'm also heartened by certain parts of the medium-term budget statement that came out that showed that at least we're not getting worse. Because sometimes you've got to stabilize the patient as it's sitting on that operating table. And I think that the economic patient that is South Africa has been stabilized. But I'm horrified that the Minister of Finance says, well, within the next 3 years, we'll be growing at 1.8%. We are a country that lacks ambition. We expect other people to do it for us. Doesn't work that way. It's up to us. It's up to you and I to make this country work. And it's up to you and I to hold our office bearers, the people that we pay for, to account. So, good and bad news this week. I'm taking it as a big win. I hope that more presidents pull out of this G20 before it happens next week as we record this thing. I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to see this thing be an abject failure and for South Africa to get kicked out of the G20 so that we can earn our place when we get back in. That's what I wish for South Africa. And I wish for you to have a good evening, and I wish for you to subscribe to the State of the Nation. So go out there, rent a car through Pace, click subscribe, and we'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Thanks for joining me.